which is Africa is a blessed continent. Look outside, 365 days of sunshine, nowhere in the world, only in the African continent. But we have over 620 million citizens energy impoverished. Something wrong somewhere. 65% of uncultivated arable land in this African continent. Over 240 million citizens going to bed hungry. When it comes to policies, some have even jokingly said that Africa has become a cemetery of policies, and that's true. But what has been missing is really where the crux of the matter lies. What I summarize in 5 I's. Africa doesn't lack ideas, that's the first I. Africa doesn't lack innovations. We mentioned M-Pesa, a trailblazing innovation that happened right here in Kenya. But the last 3 I's are what I think really needs to trigger thought. And the first is, in addition to the 2 I've mentioned, is incentives. We need to look at the kind of incentives we can put in place to be able to trigger what is already happening, because let's never discuss as if Africa, that there is nothing happening in Africa. I mean, there is the Africa of 2018 have much improved as compared to the Africa of the 60s and the 50s. There's a lot of progress that has been made. But how can we be able to leverage that progress and make it the norm and not the exception? Incentives comes in, and we need research to be able to look detailedly the kind of incentives that can be put in place to leverage and build on what is already happening. The other part, I, is the institutions, and I think the PS eloquently alluded to this. Sometimes we may have ideas that are championed by another institution which would have cascaded to inform other aspects happening, especially when it comes to policy. Policy synchronization has been a problem in the continent today, and that results to duplication of efforts, which is resulting to ensuring that we don't uptake what is already happening in an optimal way. The last, which has been the Achilles of the African continent, is inclusive partnerships for implementation. We want to do things our own way. We want to do it alone so that we can shine, but that has not worked for over 60 years. So implementation is the crucial aspect. Turning policies into action, ensuring research-informed policy and informed action. Like Dr. Odero shows, in one of his presentations, he showed research work being eaten up by ants in an office somewhere. How can we be able to ensure that we implement those findings, we turn them into action? These are the crucial aspects that are actually needed. And to the question on the African Agenda 2063, as I've said, and I think the PS alluded to this, using the CADEP as an example, there are a lot of things that are happening in the continent. But what is needed to move away from dreams to reality is very simple. And I said this during the discussion remarks. Money alone will not be able to implement Africa Union Agenda 2063. The biggest wealth that the continent have got is its people. And unless you tap into this sovereign world, tapping into people's skills, people's talents, building on already ongoing initiative, the continent will never be able to achieve what is enshrined in African Union Agenda 2063. And therefore, we must leverage on this human capital to be able to drive socio-economic transformation. And to the last part, I'm not going to touch the one on reproduction because Prof has eloquently answered that. The one on how can we fill the gap. We need research to understand what. Good. How can we fill the gap? As I said, if you look at the continent today, there is a lot that is already happening. And I said Africa's solutions are global solutions. If you go to the villages, when we talk about ecosystem-based adaptation, mothers in villages are utilizing organic manure. But unfortunately, they're utilizing techniques that are helping not only mitigate carbon, but build climate resilience. To what extent are they being recognized or their efforts being connected in such a way that they can tap into opportunities? This research needs to be able to look into this, and within that question, There in March 2018 in the capital city of Rwanda, Kigali, African head of state and government adopted the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. To what extent will that be beneficial to a mother in a village that is utilizing actions that are environmentally friendly, that are contributing to building climate resilience? This needs to be put to the fore, and as the PS said, and communicated in a way that makes sense to the policy makers. I'll stop here.